Well folks, you already heard the news. The Yamaha R9 is being delayed and everyone is pretty pissed, including myself. I was hoping to get one by March, but I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. But guess what? We have something new. We have a new kid on the block, and this one is the 2025 Ducati V2. And if you've been keeping track with my videos and reading some of the comments, a lot of people are putting their sights on the Ducati V2 because it's a motorcycle that has changed quite a lot since its previous generation, and it may or may not be replacing something that already existed in the marketplace before, and they just gave it the V2 badge. Lots to talk about in this episode. Let's get right into it. So a unicorn motorcycle that Ducati had was called the Super Sport, and up until last year, this motorcycle was selling in the marketplace for somewhere around the same price as what the new generation V2 is selling for. So that motorcycle was the Super Sport, and this year they're going to be discontinuing it. Anyway, last generation's V2 was $18,995, and this is something that is pretty typical of the Ducati brand. Ducati is more of an exotic brand. Obviously, they're going to charge more money for it, so $18,995 is something to be expected. However, the brand new V2 is going to be $15,995, with the caveat being that if you do decide to get the V2 S model, that S model is going to cost you about $3,000 more here in the United States. So what exactly do you get with this brand new S model? Well, number one, you get a rear cowl. And besides that, the pegs are removed, you get Öhlins suspension, as well as a lighter lithium-ion battery pack. So if you're looking for style over perhaps carrying a pillion with you, then the V2S is probably something that you should be purchasing. And let's not forget the Öhlins suspension is going to run at a premium as well. But me personally, I would probably purchase the base model, which is $15,995. I don't necessarily need the Öhlins for that, especially with motorcycles like the Yamaha R9, which we're going to be talking about next, that are already really feature-packed. Speaking of Yamaha R9, that motorcycle is $12,495. You don't get multiple versions. That motorcycle is spec'd out for $12,495, and you get it as is. Who knows in the future if they're going to come out with an SP model like their MT-09, or they're going to leave it as a base Yamaha R9 model. But I think they might come out with an SP model or something that is a little better than their Yamaha R9. But that's something that we're going to have to wait out and see. So this is completely speculative at this point. Now, let's talk about performance. Now, as opposed to the old generation V2, the old generation had a 950cc Desmo engine. This brand new engine is completely brand new, and it weighs about 110 pounds, if my figures are correct. It's an 890cc 90-degree V2 with intake valve variable timing, whatever the hell that means. But yeah, it's got it, it sounds cool, and I can't wait to hear it in person. Is it gonna sound like the previous generation V2, or is it gonna sound a little bit different? No one really knows. The power is down on this motorcycle. I'm not sure if people are disappointed or not, but as a result of losing some power, it also loses some weight. And from what I've been hearing and the videos that I've watched from Ducati, along with other press people, they're saying that this motorcycle is just as quick, if not quicker, than the previous gen V2, which is pretty cool if you ask me. But anyway, it's got 120 horsepower at 10,750 RPM. But here's the great news. It has 69 foot-pounds of torque, and you get most of the torque, I would say 70% of it, at 3,000 RPM. So considering that most of us are probably not going to be at the track every single week, most of us are going to put lots and lots of miles on this on the road. 70% of the torque coming at 3,000 RPM is probably something that we're all going to welcome very well. Now let's talk about the Yamaha R9's performance. Now, as you know, I already have a Yamaha R9 versus ZXXR video, so if you haven't watched that video, make sure to watch that one next. But anyway, as far as the R9, same exact CC. You get 890 cc, but here's the caveat. The R9 has a 3-cylinder engine. So if you belong on this side and this team believes in there's no replacement for displacement, then the Yamaha R9 is for you. Because the 3-cylinder engine on the R9, we all know what it sounds like, and it sounds absolutely delicious, because a 3-cylinder engine is something I fell in love with when I had my Street Triple RS, and to this day I still miss that sound. So with an exhaust, I think it'll sound absolutely impeccable. But anyway, as far as the horsepower for the Yamaha R9, it's pretty much similar to the V2. It's going to be anywhere between 115 to 120. We don't know officially what the figures are going to be because this motorcycle hasn't really given us that much information, or I should say Yamaha hasn't given us that much information about it, so we really don't know, to be honest with you. But let's just say, for instance, it's going to be anywhere between 115 to 120, and it'll be very, very similar to the V2. As far as the torque is concerned, very similar to the V2 as well. You're going to get very, very close to 70 foot-pounds of torque, just like the V2. So I want to see both of these motorcycles head to head, and I want to see how well they do next to each other on a racetrack as well as on the street. And I'm sure the user-generated content is going to be flooding YouTube, and I can't wait for it. Now let's go ahead and talk about the weight of these motorcycles. So here's the thing with the V2. Ducati says that the dry weight of the V2 is 395 pounds. They don't give you the wet weight like Yamaha does. So I did some calculations myself. Considering that this motorcycle is 395 pounds dry, that's with fluids inside of it except for gas. So if you put 4 gallons of fuel into it, that's about 24 pounds. You're going to get a motorcycle that weighs 419 pounds. 395 plus 24, 419, right? So if the motorcycle weighs 419 pounds, then why does Ducati claim that this motorcycle is 37.8 pounds less than the previous gen? I'm not exactly sure where they got that number from, because the old V2 weighed 446 pounds. So if you do the math, that's only a 27-pound difference between the old one and the new one. Maybe they're comparing the wet versus dry, but if we do the math with fuel inside of it, it still doesn't make sense. So I'm curious, if you know something about that I don't know, leave a comment down below. As far as Yamaha is concerned, they just put it out there. The wet weight for the motorcycle is 430 pounds, no gimmicks, none of that BS. With fuel inside of it, 3.7 gallons, 430, perfect. Now let's go ahead and move on to electronics. As you know, Ducati is Ducati. They're gonna deck it out with electronics. While obviously it's not as decked out as their V4 counterpart, this motorcycle does have ABS cornering, Ducati traction control, wheelie control, it's got a quick shifter up and down, and it's version 2.0, as well as engine brake control and probably something else that I'm missing. But anyway, it's IMU based, just like every other motorcycle in the marketplace at the current moment. It's something, if you like, perfect. If you don't, well, you're gonna have to live with it. And then of course, it's also got ride modes, you got race, you got sport, you got street. As far as the Yamaha is concerned, you got these expected features, which you already know about and which I already talked about. So we're gonna keep it to a minimum here. You got an IMU system, and you got all the stuff that Ducati has. You got traction control, you got cornering ABS, you got all the good stuff that Ducati has. So on par with one another in terms of electronics and an IMU-based ECU. The good news is that for the Yamaha R9, you got 2 levels of quick up and down shifting. Now, what does that exactly mean when you're actually on the track and on the road? I'm not exactly sure, but this is what I've been hearing. There's 2 different levels of it. So could it be one is faster than the other? I'm not exactly sure. So this is something that we're gonna have to find out as we get more information from Yamaha. A couple of other notable features and details about the V2. You get a 5-inch display, just like their brand new V4. But here's the kicker. For the rear tire of the V2, we're talking 190 rear, but on the R9, we're talking 180. Does that really make a difference when you're on the track or on the road? I'm not really sure, but as far as price is concerned, when you're looking to replace this tire, the 180 tire is probably going to cost you a couple of dollars less. If you care about that kind of stuff, then this is probably important to you. But anyway, I like the fact that there's a 190 in the rear. The rear is probably going to look a little bit more aggressive on the V2, but it's a very, very minor detail, and I really don't care about it, and I'm sure you feel the same as well. That being said, the V2 is a Ducati, okay? So one thing is synonymous with Ducati is that their motorcycles run really, really hot. So one thing that Ducati is saying for this motorcycle is that they have thermal comfort. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure, because every single Ducati I've ever ridden has cooked my balls. And I think if Ducati does something about this, then it'll be an absolute miracle. But we're gonna have to see what thermal comfort actually means when we get behind this motorcycle and ride it out and see what it's like. But anyway, the last thing I want to talk about with the V2 is that I'm really shocked about this, and I'm very disappointed about this. Why are they including M50 calipers on a brand new motorcycle when the competition is now using stylemas? I'm not exactly sure. The M50 calipers are pretty ancient, and I think they should be including updated calipers, if not the newest ones, at least the stylemas, because then it'll be on par with the Yamaha R9. First of all, they're charging $16,000 for this, but if they can include stylemas, same as the R9, I think I would probably feel better about a V2 purchase. But considering I had these M50 calipers on my previous gen Street Triple RS, they were absolutely phenomenal. And plus, this motorcycle doesn't weigh as much as the 959 or the previous gen V2, so it actually may not make a difference at all. But I'm still kind of disappointed that the M50s were included, and I wish it was the beefier stylemas. I honestly think that the R9 is closer to the R6 than the V2 is to its previous generation V2 counterpart, which was the 2024 model. Essentially, this new V2 is a Super Sport. That's why the Super Sport is discontinued. What can I say, folks? The manufacturers are victims of this Euro 5 plus whatever it is nonsense that's been going on. So every single generation of motorcycles are losing a little bit power or gaining a little bit power, but losing something else in between. So this is the new reality we live in. And this has been my take about the R9 versus V2 debate. Now it's your turn. What do you think? And please don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to the channel. Peace.